Once upon a time, there was an organic, all-knowing, sentient computer in every organisation. It knew how to book a meeting room, recall telephone numbers from memory, or let you know that A4 paper is in the second drawer down, not the first. They were often called Debbie or Tom. But remote working and a rapid turnover of staff brought about the termination of Tom and the demise of Debbie. So what's next? Google Home in the office? Well, not unless we just need a kitchen timer. Hi Heidi and hi Brent.
Hello again.
Hi.
You're absolutely right. I remember now, if I think back to every company I've worked in, there was always that sage-like character that knew everything.
You need to find Yoda in the organization.
Yes.
That was always the key prior to the work environment that we had. You had to figure out who the person was who knew where the bodies were buried.
Yeah. In the basement they may be.
They usually sat at the front desk. Quite often they were at the front desk. Over time it became the person that could fix technology.
Yeah.
Right.
They knew everything about how everything worked, and if you were having any problem getting a conference room, like calling someone, they're like, oh, that phone number is XYZ.
Right. That's very much the role I fulfill at home as far as tech's concerned, because now with multiple devices, the internet goes down, Dad! And I'm not the internet provider. I don't know. Switch it off and switch it on.
But actually you are. You are the internet provider.
So why don't they exist anymore then?
I'm doing some fascinating work with a client at the moment that started off actually quite tedious until I really figured out what the task was. And in that old office environment, we used to physically walk into the office. And that's why you would figure out what's the right person to ask here. How do I solve this?
Yeah.
And what I realized is because offices are completely virtual, you almost have to imagine the office like a virtual reality game.
Right, I do need a headset for this episode.
Yeah, you might actually need a headset. It's really interesting. The work with this client started off as me saying, well, you're rolling out this new work model. Where are all of your resources for this? Your training guides, your SOPs, your help pieces? And the response I got was, oh, we don't have a file structure. We just email stuff to people.
Ooh,
now,
that's wrong on many levels, isn't it, really?
I'm a sloppy desk person, but she said that, I was going,
Oh, email. The worst way to communicate.
Yes, the worst way to manage your
Right up there with SharePoint.
Yeah. Let's archive our media assets using email.
Yeah. So I had a crisis, and then I realized that there is one thing. This organization is full of employees who don't even have access to one single server.
Right.
Many of them are attached to different servers, and here's the very 2020 piece of it, they all work remote. They might come into the office once or twice a month. Otherwise, they're out working in the community and doing all of these things. So they have a fully non-office-based culture. And what I realized was they need a common file structure that almost functions like a video game.
Right. So what we're saying here is we're not going to have that sage-like character anymore that's been there 30 years because they really don't exist.
Yeah.
But Yoda needs to be replaced by a solid process backed up with IT.
Yeah, and I think there are ways to do it. And we've been throwing around the idea and the thought of gamifying knowledge in an organization, because you have younger employees coming in that are more used to interacting with technology in a different way than me and you go and look for a file on a drive somewhere and we can figure out where it is.
Yeah.
How do you change that knowledge base to be more adaptable to the individuals that are using it? I don't think it's a chatbot because chatbots right now currently don't learn.
Yeah.
They're really not all that AI useful.
No, they are terrible.
At some point, AI will become better where you'll be able to type or ask a question.
Yes.
And the system will say, I've heard that question before. Here's how I answered it last time. And that seemed to be acceptable. So maybe this will work for you.
Because it's collecting that information. Yeah.
But gamifying knowledge somehow so that people have access to it when they need it and where they need it.
Yeah, I could see a home menu looking very much like what you would see on a Minecraft page, where it's all menus. Yeah. My son and daughter both have the VR headsets. And, you know, you look around, you can select menus, you can pull boxes out. I mean, that whole idea of files, I guess, will seem quite old and novel to their generation.
It's like, why am I looking on Z? What does Z mean?
What does that even mean?
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because from a culture standpoint, average employee who's working in this remote capacity is around 30 to 35 years old. So very much the digital native. They play video games and they have no interest, zero interest in business type things, in air quotes. And business type things would be the client files, the procedure, the SOP. All of that for them is wah, wah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The language of the office is pretty...
It doesn't relate to them at all. So we've been working on creating a structure that feels like when you come into it, one of those character journey games where you go, okay.
Ooh, like The Hobbit.
That type of thing where you go, okay, to pass my first phase gate, I need to collect a rock, a flower, and a cupcake, or whatever it is in the game. So that it really feels like they know where to go to collect the tools to get through that phase gate. And it's framing information in a way that when you reverse into it, all of a sudden you've created a digital office.
Yeah, I really like that. It seems far more plausible than what Facebook is doing, creating this virtual world in which we exist as cartoon characters interacting. Oh my word. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Oh my word.
There's the level that I would also put to that for, I'm happy to gamify this so that it relates to employees' thought structure.
Yeah.
Because for leadership, that lowers the amount of time that they have to answer questions. If there's self-accessible things that relate to the mind maps of the employee, that's a win. I'm not creating cartoon characters. It's work.
And I think the really fascinating thing about approaching it that way is, you know, what dictates the way that the program is written is the process that you orchestrate in author beforehand. You've got to totally understand the way that business works and to put that process in place that then dictates to the programmers, informs them as to how to write that flow chart of questions, answers, and all the other paraphernalia.
And that's one of the really interesting parts of this is the organization has, like any organization, a task life cycle. What's the first step of the engagement? What's the second step? Most work has a life cycle from A to Z.
Right.
And by building out the file structure to support this sort of character journey idea, you're reinforcing and building out what is the mission of this organization and what do we do as an organization. So it's an interesting way of reinforcing culture, expectations, mission, and process.
Right. Like it. I wish my Google Home could do a bit of this, you know. Send that document on my desktop into the office. Will do.
Yeah.
Instead of just like set a timer for 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Useless, annoying piece of... But can't that avatar be Yoda? Yoda can't go yet.
It would be nice.
Yeah.
And where I see this is this isn't an end goal. With anything in technology at this point, if it lasts 3 years before it's irrelevant, you're lucky.
Right.
But what I see it as a precursor is remote offices and virtual offices are the thing of the future.
Right.
So if you look at those value statements from the old in-person office, who was the Yoda? What did you get from being in the office?
Yeah.
We are in the midst of an arc that's building out some sort of technical future where maybe you can get that Yoda to come back in, that person who knows everything that you need.
If you can find a way of correlating and collecting that information, if you can collect every question that Yoda is asked, then you can start to build databases and so is this, and forgive me if I miss this, is this something that you're actually working to develop with one of your organizations? Is this something that you use as a hypothetical to explain processes?
It's kind of an outlined structure at this point.
Yeah. It's something that it's current work, and it's sort of testing it to see how far can we get with this.
Yeah. Oh, it's really exciting. Because I am a geek, so it is giving me a bit of a nerdgasm.
Yeah. It has a lot of, when you really start futuring and you say, so we're going to need a brick and mortar virtual office.
Yeah.
What do the bits and bytes look like of a brick and mortar virtual office? And how do you, you're not going to have the bean bags of Silicon Valley, the bean bag chairs. You're not going to have that. But how do you express that through the digital reality of the remote office? It's an interesting future space.
And giving a bit of a personal touch to that interaction with the server, because connecting to a server remotely, as so many of us are doing, is not a pleasant experience. It's all, URLs and DNS and it's to sort of log into a Minecraft type interface or to talk to some sort of artificial intelligence eventually down the road. Much better way of doing it.
It's an interesting future.
I'm very impressed. Put me down on the beta test, please. Or is it beta?
Or could it be a tomato or a tomato?
Urinal. Let's call the whole thing off. No, let's not, because Yoda wants to know. What do we have next week, Heidi?
Next steps.
Okay.
Next steps.
That's where we're going next.
Which, of course, I know the answer if I ask for more detail, so why bother? See you next week, we may.
Bye, Yoda.
We shall see you next week, Yoda.
May the force be with you.